as always, one of the things I always like to do, and I think this is a great way to start, is first of all, let's go around and introduce ourselves. So just kind of briefly tell who we are and kind of what brought you here tonight. So whoever wants to start. Whoever.
I'm Jen. I am here because it's a workshop, and they started trying to start strong in the semester so that I'm not like rushing to make things up.
Nice. And we appreciate that being proactive with us. That's all a good thing. So who's that? Next.
I'm Sam.
Thanks for sharing that information. I know kind of most of you guys came for a requirement, and some of you came because of personal reasons. But I want to tell you, first of all, that the alternate routes, like I said before, is a connective series. So we're going to be building on what you learn each workshop. Okay. So one of our former WAR staff, Patricia Moody, our former counselor, she came up with the idea for alternate routes, and I said it was a phenomenal idea and wanted to bring it back because it works so well and so fluidly with helping in a foundational piece by building on each piece every week that we do a workshop. Okay. So ideally, what we're wanting to see in the end result, we're actually wanting you two things. You will actually have a free assessment that we provide for you that you'll take, and you'll get to kind of have your top 10 strengths, okay? Now this is a really cool piece that we've kind of infused this year with our alternate routes, which is a little bit different caveat piece. It allows you to see something that you have in common with millions of people around the world. Okay, so this assessment has been taken from people from Bangladesh to Singapore to Thailand to Ottawa, Canada to Brazil to Mexico, Spain, Great Britain, all around the world. And also the Roar Scholar staff took it as well, and now Roar Scholar students are taking it. So it is a really, really cool informational piece that kind of gives you a little bit of self-discovery, as well as you'll have some conversations as we go along through this piece. So you'll walk away with two things. The assessment, so we'll take that actually, that precursor to next week's workshop, so you'll actually take that assessment and bring it with you for next week's workshop, so our planning specifically. And number two, you will actually have created a city map, okay? Now, I don't expect you all to be wonderful artists and fantastic at creating things specifically, but we have two wonderful examples, and I do want to show Miss Courtney's first, because
it's not art.
You know, so this is Courtney's, so her city map plan, and we're going to be building on these each workshop that we work on specifically. So you're going to have a visualized representation of your goals and your development as you matriculate through this process. Okay, that is Courtney's, and what would any person be without having one specifically? So here's mine. I'm a little bit more artistic, but you know, I don't know, I like to draw. So we'll pass these around and you can kind of look at information. So we'll be talking about these as we go through the process. So we'll start on this side, we'll start this one on this side, and this one up here. You guys will go to. Okay? So you can look at that.
This is much more interesting, I promise.
Well, I wouldn't say interesting, I would just say a little bit more life experience probably is probably the correct term that you're looking for. So let's go ahead and jump in and get started with alternate routes, all roads lead to success. So sit back, enjoy, engage, and get your thinking caps on as we go back to the past. Okay, so let me kind of cover a few things. First of all, we're going to be objectively, we're going to be going and talking about the past. So you can't talk about the present where you are currently until you talk about some of the pieces that you actually have done throughout your childhood, as well as some of the interests that you had, maybe some hobbies from high school, as well as some additional pieces that you had carried over into college. Now, how many of you are freshmen this year? Any freshmen that we have in here? Freshmen, okay, got one freshman. Any sophomores? Sophomores, okay, we got a few more sophomores. Any more juniors? Juniors. And seniors, we got some seniors in here. So we kind of cover the whole spectrum, matriculation from freshman all the way through senior in college, great. We'll also be talking about the future. So, you know, in order to know where you're going, guess what? You have to know where you've been. You have to know where you are in order to know where you're going, okay? And we're going to kind of help you develop a clear roadmap for success. I always tell students, you know, when you're going on a journey, what are some things that you need to have? What are some things?
A map.
A map, okay. If you're going on a journey today, a great journey, is there anything in particular that you couldn't live without?
I'm going on a journey today.
Yeah, a journey today. Big journey, important journey. Is there anything that you have to bring along with you?
Good shoes.
Good shoes, good walking shoes? Maybe?
Yeah, clothes.
Clothes, yeah. What about packing like a a rain poncho or something just in case the rain or weather gets bad. Maybe, right? Sure, you're like, cell phone, but what if the cell phone didn't work? Halfway before you play radio, okay? Something to keep your time idle, right? All right. So as we go through this, we're going to kind of break it down. We'll obviously do a little bit of introduction, specifically, which we did. We'll kind of overview the series of today's information, and we'll do a trip down memory lane for your academic past, talk about your academic present, your academic future, and we'll start working on your city map specifically. So you'll actually walk away for today. If you want to take your maps with you, that's fine. I would encourage you to kind of take and continue developing them, but if you want to keep them in the office, you can just give them to us, the peer mentors, and we'll have them available for next week's workshop. Okay. So without further ado, I do want to kind of introduce StrengthsQuest. So I'm pretty excited about this. So when I was introduced to StrengthsQuest, this is an amazing day. So about 5 million people have taken the StrengthsQuest Finder assessment worldwide. So you're going to be having something in common with 5 million people, which is pretty amazing. So you think about that, statistically on numbers, 5 million people around the world have taken this assessment. Okay? So on here, there are broken up into various different categories of how we work with people, or how we retain information, or how we communicate effectively or ineffectively, how we have strategic or futuristic planning are just some of the things specifically, or how we look at a situation in a different perspective. So to kind of give you a little bit of preview right here, I'm going to talk about mine specifically. So right here, the first one at the very bottom is called woo. Now when you think about the term woo, what's the first thing that comes to mind? If you woo somebody. Anybody?
You impress them.
You impress them, okay? First impressions are lasting, right? What about winning them over to your side? So gaining them as an ally or a friend or a cohort or a partner or a collaborative partner. So my top one is woo. So I like to go and have conversations with random people. I do that all the time. On the bus, downtown. I just like to talk to people. I want to know their story. So I'm able to woo people over with that specifically. The second one that I actually entertain, which is pretty awesome, I have to say is going to be strategic. So I'm constantly thinking about how we can plan, how we can set goals, how we can plan for the future, as well as what are we doing now that we can, what can we do now that will help us tomorrow. So strategic is thinking kind of a little bit of forward thought, so thinking about the future but not really living there, but living in the present. Next up after that is going to be communication. So my communication skills, obviously, which is awesome. So effectively working with people and communicating with them on either interpersonal or intrapersonal skills. Number 4 for me specifically is one where individualization. So if you're ever working with me and you see that I can actually pull out your strengths or skill sets and things from you, just having a conversation or working with you, that's where that comes into play. And this is really cool because I never knew really what that was called. I never really had an adjective or a pronoun or a word to describe myself by having that ability. But then I realized that not everybody has that ability, that there are a few of us out there that have that ability. And it's pretty cool because there was only 2 people on campus that had this in our group, which is pretty awesome. Myself and Melissa Hortman, the coordinator for study skills for the Center for Student Learning, which is pretty awesome. So I was like, I know there's a reason why I love you to death, Melissa, because we share individualization in common. And then finally, my 5th one, but also still on high on the level, is empathy. The ability to use empathy in terms of working with people specifically to help them kind of understand where they're coming from, to understand their backgrounds, their trials or tribulations specifically, and kind of help them formulate a plan of action that's based on their plans that we can get them to be successful, to be happy, things like that. So that's just kind of mine specifically, but we'll go through more of this later at next week when you actually have taken the assessment and we can talk about it. You know I'm a big quote person, so quotes are amazing. So I want you to think about this quote for a second. So one should waste as little effort as possible on improving the areas of low competency. It takes far more energy to improve in competence to mediocrity than it takes to improve first-rate performance to excellence. Did that make sense? Did you guys get that? Yes? Or do you want me to repeat it?
Focus on your strengths rather than your weaknesses.
Absolutely. Okay? And so constantly individuals are coming to us and saying, well, I don't know what I'm good at, I don't know what I'm good at, I don't know what I'm good at. And I was like, you do know what you're good at, you just don't think about it. These are things that come naturally to you, that are part of your core, who you are. That are things that were ingrained in you, either through natural ability or things that you've learned along the way. Okay? So excellent. Thank you, Ben. Another quote. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. That is by none other than Aristotle. So we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. What are your thoughts about that quote? It's on this side. There's one of our philosophers in the back, so tell me what do you think, Jake?
Oh, why would you do that
No. Because you are one of our deep thinkers, man. Come on.
Not a deep thinker.
Yes, you are. Come on.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, what stands out about this quote to you?
I don't even know if he even said that.
What?
It's not that I've ever read.
Okay.
But
Well, does anybody want to help Jade now? All right, Allison.
I would just say, like, it's trying to say, like, certain skills aren't inborn, so if you want to be good at something, you're gonna have to work towards it.
So if you don't have a natural skill set for something, and you want to accomplish that, you're going to have to put a little effort. You're going to have to work for it, right? Absolutely. Some of the greatest people that we know who ever lived in our world that were successful, when they finally were they successful the first time?
No.
Absolutely not. I mean, people like Albert Einstein, who failed high school geometry. They told him that he was incapable of learning math. One of the most brilliant minds the planet has ever seen. Or Henry Ford, who had enough foresight to actually develop a six-cylinder engine, when his engineers told him it was impossible. There's no way to build a six-cylinder engine. Yes?
Abraham Lincoln
Absolutely. Yeah.
was fired from several jobs.
Yeah, not just that, but he ran for like 99 offices.
Yeah.
And never won an office or election until the 100th one when he ran and won President of the United States. Pretty amazing. Yeah. So we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So it's something that we have to ingrain. Stephen Covey, a famous guru on success and positive psychology, says that it takes 21 days to establish a habit or to correct a behavior. 21 days. So if you think about that through the course of your semester, if there's something that you're working on, or you're working on your academic preparation, you have 21 days to really put forth the effort so that it will actually stick in your daily routine. Okay? So we're going back to the past. So a trip down memory lane. These are some things I want you to think about. So think to yourself where you started, where you came from, your roots, as they say. What did you want to be when you grew up? Did you have a certain inclination or a certain interest in a particular field that you had as a little kid? What career did you want to pursue? And then what, if any, role models were you most inspired by? So let's tackle a few of this. So what did you want to be when you grew up? Anybody?
A surgeon.
A surgeon, okay.
Hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed. A lawyer, okay.
A magician.
A magician, okay. A zoological veterinarian. That's a tough description. Anybody else?
President.
President, okay.
Go, girl.
There you go. All right.
Poli-sci major.
All right. Now, what career do you want to pursue now? Is it still the same? Has it changed?
Writer.
It's a writer, okay. So you got more of that creative energy, more of that artistic ability?
Yeah, I think, and also it was a quote that Alan Moore once said that writers, anybody who makes art is our modern day shamans.
Yes.
Because what they do is magic.
Absolutely.
The art of creation and transformation.
So you took a passion of yours, you took a yearning, and found a way that fit into your skill sets so that you could be successful. That's awesome. Very cool. Anybody else? Has it changed for you since you were a little kid? Still the same? Still the same a little bit? A little bit? Okay.
Although I'm still waiting for my Hogwarts letter.
So waiting for your Hogwarts then. There you go. Well, tell me if that comes, because if it comes, I want to go. So I might hide in the suitcase. I don't know if that'll work, but we'll try. What if a role model were you most inspired by? Was there a particular person that you were growing up that you saw or that emulated what you wanted to be? And if so, why? Anybody?
Dr. Benjamin Carson.
Dr. Benjamin Carson.
He was
okay.
the first, not only the first African American male to really do well at Johns Hopkins, but he also was the first one to separate conjoined twins from the brain.
Oh, wow.
So and then he became the director of the whole hospital.
Nice.
So yeah.
So his aspirations, you kind of emulated your journey after him.
His story is very similar to mine.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
There's a movie about that, right?
Yeah, Gifted Hands.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it's got Alan Rickman in it and most stuff.
We might have to watch it as a critical film. So remind me about
Yeah,
that.
it's for pre-med in my high school.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
it's
cool.
really great.
That way. Come on down, Kristen.
I'm listening to this.
Who else? Anybody else have a role model that you wanted to emulate?
A bunch of different people for me.
Different people?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Maurice Sendak,
Okay.
Famous
Famous writer?
yeah,
Famous magician?
he's actually he's actually a children's book illustrator, but actually
Oh, wow.
he did write most of it. He did write a good number of the stuff that he published.
Oh, cool,
Neil
okay.
Gaiman, Alan Moore,
Nice.
Stan Lee.
Oh, yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if I could go Stan Lee's route, though, because all of his stories, he said, came from his nightmares. So, I don't know. So I guess I'm
Stephen
very...
King.
Yeah, Stephen King. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. Yeah, I don't know. I'd kind of be a little scared about that specifically. If I had my stories with more on nightmares, I don't know. Anybody else? No. Well, when I did want to be a veterinarian, I really was fascinated by Jack Hanna. You know, that Jack Hanna show they used to have on Saturday mornings with animals and stuff like that. And for me, as I was growing up, specifically, I'll talk about that a little bit later, I developed new role models, a new perspective. That really come on in.
Hey, Casey.
Hi.
So, session 1, academic planning. So, where we are currently right now in the present. So, we went to the past because we wanted to visit a little bit to see our history, to see what was going on. And now we're in the present. So, what have you done to get to this point right now? Have you actually had a self-check-in with yourself this semester? Have you said, self, what have I done to get here? Have you? Yes? No? No? Some of us say no? Okay. What are you doing now that's going to help prepare you towards your future goal? Because, we talked about what that looked like earlier in terms of what you had a prospective goal as a child and then now, currently, as an adult. What is your current passion? Do you even know what your current passion is? Are you still trying to uncover that locked door to self-discovery for what your passion is? I would tell you that's one of the single most important things that you can take away from these workshops is finding out what your passion is. Because if it's anything, passion definitely is a driving force in your success and also your longevity and also your happiness. Because at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy what you do, guess what?
You're gonna do anything.
Yeah, if you don't enjoy what you do, you're going to burn out. You're not going to last. You won't be there for lasting impressions, pieces. And also, you're probably not going to be in the best mental state every day going home because obviously you want to be healthy and vibrant to be able to actually transcend that or transfer that to your people that you work with, whether it's colleagues or clients or patients or students or whatever. Do you have a current mentor or professional that you look to right now? Yeah? Yeah, anybody? Yeah, everybody's looking over at Alicia.
Yeah.
Oh, thank God.
Who's one of your current mentors or professional mentor that you look for or you look to? Anybody? Anybody have a professional mentor that they look up to? For me, like I said, I mentioned Stephen Covey, Anthony Robbins, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens,
Oh.
Highly Effective College Students.
Oh, I know about him.
Yeah, Stephen Covey. where Franklin Covey is the new piece because they bought out the planners to have that extra caveat piece. But so Stephen Covey, Anthony Robbins, you might have heard of Wayne Dyer, Dr. Wayne Dyer, another guru of understanding. Also, I think person that I look up to just because of his understanding in psychology and human development was Abraham Maslow. Maslow created Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to me, which is the foundation of modern thought and understanding of how we work through conflict and things specifically. So, anybody else want to share a mentor or something that happened in their life? Casey?
You?
Oh,
and my
me?
mom?
Oh, well, thank you. Oh, that just maybe gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling inside. So thank you. I didn't know that. Anybody else have a professional mentor that they have? Okay. Now, what do we do with our strengths every day? So the question is, do you use your strengths every day? Now, remember the StrengthsQuest that we're going to be taking for next week's workshop. 5 million people have taken this assessment. And it's been really interesting, specifically, what they said. Now, this right here is, I don't exactly remember the term and what it's called. You guys might have to remind me. This thing over here, what is that called?
Word cloud.
It's a word cloud? Okay.
Yeah.
I just know it was the new cutting thing, But anyways, they had created a word cloud for the 32 Strengths Finders or StrengthsQuest assessment results, okay? So according to what I understand, is the larger the word, the more often people around the world have received that in their StrengthsQuest assessment, okay? So if you look right here, the two major ones right here is responsibility and achiever, okay? And responsibility, obviously, being able to take ownership within one's actions and one's personal pursuits and goals. Achiever being that you're a high performer, that you constantly want to drive and you want to get those goals and you see those results. Some of the more smaller ones that are kind of hard to see over here, this one, this one's input. So loving people that love data. I know Kelly is a data person. She is an input. She loves data. Give me data. For me, I like data, but for me, I want to know a little bit, and I want to see the big picture, as opposed to all the little pieces. But another one that's pretty cool is positivity, right here. Obviously, very, very important. Restorative. Anybody that likes social justice, that likes to help with social justice in terms of outreach or outliers? Yeah. What kind of things have you done with social justice, Jen?
I have basically been working with the YWCA and also help setting up the workforce empowerment program, and also for young adults with Asperger's who are high functioning, so that they can gain professional skills. Because really, there's nothing really out there for people for adults with autism. It's only for children, and there's that's kind of unbalanced. Because I mean, as much as it is a good idea for to have all these programs in school and to be searching for a cure, it's there's still people out there with autism.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's empowering to know, because there are many forms of restorative justice.
My thing about this picture here, this is all around the world, right? People who took this.
Yep.
I would think what is the population? Because you have to pay to take this test.
Right.
So who is taking it? It's not everybody.
No,
It's
you're
a
right.
certain
You're right. It is
population
certain
who's taking it.
populations. So mostly when you say who uses the StrengthsQuest every day, it's usually companies. So companies and people individually. Higher learning education institutions of higher learning have just been using this within the last 5 years. So for me, a few of my colleagues have taken this already. I had no idea what they were talking about. They're talking about strengths tokens, all these things, and lingo, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, guys, fill me in. And we helped bring the lady from Gallup, which is out of Kansas, they're out of Kansas City, Missouri, who does the training, the complete training, which is long, but is definitely worth it specifically. So information. Here's another quote for you. In order to play to your team's strengths, you need to find out what they are. So, what are your thoughts about this quote? Oh, we go back.
It's no duh.
No doubt. So
It's pretty
no
much-
aha moment. No, that's pretty much common, right?
It's what it is. It's no kidding, speaking in front of
Now, question. What about the birds here?
You can't really tell if they're flying in one direction or not.
Okay, but more specifically, what's happening with the birds?
Oh, they're my strength.
Okay,
Their information.
they're in formation, right? So birds, typically when they're migrating, this usually happens, birds will fly in the flying V. And so one will be the leader, and then when the leader gets tired, he'll fall back, and somebody else from the line will take over. From the back will come up, take over the ranks, and then they'll reshuffle back in specifically. So this phrase right here, this quote, in order to play to your team's strengths, you need to find out what they are. Has a little bit more different meaning, doesn't it, than just the aha piece in terms of duh. It's obvious, right?
It's more like you're not the Lone Ranger. You don't have to do everything, but it's better instead of, the big, the rustic individual. Well, instead it's more like, well, how about the group and actually working cooperatively?
Absolutely, absolutely. How about the group and working cooperatively? Because there are some things that some of us are better at,
Mhm.
and I acknowledge that. For me, I don't know how to do everything. And there's some things that I could still, use some extra assistance with, which is why you have to ask and collaborate. So I think it's very, very important. Good point. Anybody else have a point they want to make with this quote right here, or this little, what they call a word cloud? Yeah.
Well, even though with you said that you have some things that you need help with, I think the quote means something a little bit differently.
Okay.
Because it says in order to play to your team's strengths, you need to find out what they are.
Yeah.
So if you have to find out what they are, that means you have no knowledge of them. So that might
yeah.
include doing something that you've never done before.
Absolutely.
So how do you know that if you're good at something or you're bad at something, if you've never done it before?
Absolutely. Okay. So basically a little more self-discovery for self, right?
Yeah.
So kind of learning about delving into maybe some places that you may have not gone to or ventured to with skills or abilities that you didn't know that you had, right? Okay. Very good. I was hoping somebody was going to bring that out, so thank you, Mr. Jaden. All right. So alternate route session in terms of continuing. So time travel. So we're in the future now. Where do you want to be in one year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Or how about 10 years? So has anybody actually had a visual picture of where you see yourself in 5 years? Yes? No? Yes? We have to,
Yeah, it's very vague though.
very vague, okay. Well, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Anybody?
Probably
Not,
working.
okay, working. Not just
Was it
Casey,
work?
I'm going to put that question out to everybody, so.
Well, I kind of like, since I want to be a PA, I want to
Okay.
like own my own practice.
Okay.
So like 5 years from now, hopefully, maybe in my own space.
Nice, okay. So you want to have your own space, your own working office where you're working with clients and patients and stuff?
Yeah.
Absolutely, awesome. Anybody else?
I'll be in grad school in 5 years.
Awesome.
'Cause
Grad
there's no
school?
way I can do what I want to do without a master's and PhD.
Awesome, okay, cool.
Medical school, grad school, or those two.
Okay. So some school, you're going to be some type of professional schooling after your baccalaureate, okay.
I want to, in 1 year, at least have my bachelor's and at least 5 years, have some stories published as well as my first book.
Nice, okay, very cool. What about 10 years down the road? 10 years, where do you see yourself? Anybody have an idea? Or is that too far in advance?
It's like, I was hoping to working at one of my biggest dreams is working at a working at a
An accounting firm?
no, not an accounting firm.
Oh.
It's working at
No.
working at a animation.
Oh, working in animation. Okay, cool. Like working for Disney or Pixar or something specifically. Like working in the studio.
But it doesn't really working at one or founding my own or
Okay, cool.
Entrepreneurship.
no, not
Yeah.
not
Doing a little bit of entrepreneurship is what she was saying, Casey. So a little bit about navigating the system and maybe either starting your own company or
not company probably we're making
So working on your own projects is what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I'm working on my,
Okay,
like,
maybe making your own cartoon?
yeah,
Okay. It'd be like working for like Cartoon Network or for the Disney Channel.
yeah.
What's the other channel that Disney has? Disney XD or something?
Disney XD.
Disney XD, there you go. I knew it was an X something, okay. Now, what are you doing now? And what can you do to ensure your academic future is the best possible with tips and pointers? So what do you do currently right now, this semester, to help continue our way as we go forward for your academic future, to have the best possible outcome? So let's share some tips and pointers. So what are you guys currently doing right now?
Check your time management, check your planner daily and like plan it in chunks, like, okay, hey, I need to be doing this, I should start doing this, at this time, then go, so that you don't have to play catch up, and also like, okay, plan everything around your work and school, like what times am I available, and just kind of as my own thing. I remember a quote, I remember like reading this horoscope in city paper, but it said, practice doing the thing you love so that you can be ready. And so it's like, for me, it's like, I need to write every day, at least just even a little bit, to, so that I can like do it for the rest of my life.
There you go, I like that. Very cool. Who else?
It's like, I found some books about drawing, especially like doing like fantasy and
Okay.
and sci-fi, because I can't, I need like expand.
Maybe, I don't know, I got an idea that just came to me, just popped in my head. So maybe we can get you involved in doing some cartoon stuff for us for the More newsletter or something. That would be an awesome opportunity. So let's talk later, okay? All right, somebody else. Thank you for sharing us. Somebody else?
Just make sure I have the greatest grades possible I can have.
Okay.
And
No, you said the greatest grades. What are we talking about? We're talking about the A, the whole, if we have Dean's List, the whole A,
Yeah,
4.0, or at least shooting there, right?
Yeah, shooting there.
Shooting there, okay?
that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, cool. Anybody else? Alicia?
I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna do when I graduate.
Nice, okay.
Yeah, I'm currently resume building, but at the same time, like I'll start something, then pause, like, okay, see what I need to know for the GRE, stop. All right, now I'm just doing like the immediate things, and I still have to plan time to figure out what I'm gonna do afterwards.
So you're still thinking about your future, but right now you kind of get a little bit distracted, so you're
Yeah.
trying to focus and be more focused. Great. Anybody else? Anybody? Well, I personally want to get my doctorate. Something I wanted to do for a while now. And I've already pursued 2 or 3 programs, and I have options now. And now I just have to, I'm getting probably 2 more colleagues' opinions, just kind of getting, getting their opinions and ideas about thoughts about the programs. They're both distance learning programs. So I would be, to me, it's something that I already know that I know, but I want to have the doctorate just so it's one of those things, so there's no question. So how did that so specific? So anyways, anybody else? Thank you for sharing that, guys. And as we go through this process, if something comes and something inspires you to share a tip or additional pointer, feel free to actually come up and utilize that as we go through the piece, okay? So now it's time to do our city map. So everybody got your city map in front of you? Nope.
Should have brought mine.
You should have brought yours, yes, yes. But if you want to start a new one, you're welcome to work on one.
I don't have a city map.
All right. So you got your thing. So you got one.
Yeah.
All right. So now how this works, okay? What I'm going to do, get one, is this is a really cool thing that Bertika Moody and Brittany Smalls at the time, our intern, came up with. And it kind of comes back from the idea of vision boarding, visualizing your best possible future and creating that future that you want to come to fruition. So I'm going to attempt to bring this up so that I can figure out how to work the system. Let's see. I guess not. So.
Is it even connected?
Huh?
Is it even plugged into the?
No, it's not. That's a good question. See, it's right here. It is not. Well, this thing's plugged in. This is with a laptop. I'm looking at the city map. And I thought I had saved it to my hard drive, but unfortunately it's not. But so what we're going to be looking at is using this legend to kind of focus on our goals, focus on things specifically that you are currently doing right now with your academics, where you kind of have been in terms of your past, your history, where you are currently at the College of Charleston, specifically with your deciding on your major or potential interest with your major, and then also where your possible future might be, okay? When the ones that you're passing around, specifically, what are some things that stood out to you guys?
Like
Mine's behind you.
Yeah.
You
Things that
always
stood out to me
example.
was like the major like changes and like the different routes that you could have taken or are taking,
Okay.
and like the different things that branch off from those routes.
Right. So in terms of thinking about life is sometimes going to throw you curveballs, right? So you might have one thing planned, and guess what? Something might throw a curveball on there and take you someplace else. But it's not necessarily saying that you're not going to get back on track. It just might take you a few months or a little while to get back on track from where you were originally, right? And that's why I think roadmaps are very, very important. Specifically, I think they kind of tell a lot about ourselves. So if Courtney would like to explain hers a little bit, she could tell you a little bit about hers.
Sure.
So thank you for sharing.
I was trying to keep on simple because my life's complicated. Yeah. Okay, so I was really trying to follow that precisely, and it's really hard because all the different, I guess like units that we're supposed to use, I was like trying to combine railroad tracks and roads and bridges, and it just became this. So anyway.
Yeah.
So I started off, I went to 4 different high schools. So that was fun. I was in private school for a while, so that's one road. And then
Copies of this real quick.
homeschool, and then I went to a public school, and then my senior year I went to a dual credit school. So I have college and high school, which is confusing. And then my senior year I decided to break my back because that just seemed like a fun thing to do. So I have a little lake here. That was fun. But it got me to CFC, so that's like my interstate. And then I have like a river that's kind of my lining graduation. It's like, yay, accomplishment, I did something right. Then I have like mountains that are my scholarships, which is one unit they have in there, like mountains can be money or something like that. And then basically I'll have graduate school possibly, and then I'm kind of torn between what, I guess, career path I want to go on. I'm a poli-sci and theater double major. So I want to do something with acting and eventually work my way into politics. So I actually have 2 roads that kind of crisscross because it seemed like the best way to demonstrate that. So that's my simple little map. Tom's is very elaborate. It's right up there with the light line.
So this one right here, of course I have a lot more life experience than some of you, so mine has a little bit more on here. But my alma mater, Murray State, which I hope we get to play them again this year. Because if we do, I will definitely be there. I didn't know about it until the night of the game that we were playing. So I wish I did that.
What sport? Football?
Basketball. So if we ever get a football team, we have a football team too. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I said if we ever get one back, because College Charleston was thinking about it. But so MSU, Murray State University in Kentucky. Started out here, and then I got my Bachelor's of Science in Organization Communication and Youth Nonprofit Management. Got a job, my first job after graduation was working for a YMCA as Outreach Director in Champaign-Urbana, which I know it's kind of weird, Champaign and Urbana, but you kind of put them together, Champaign-Urbana. It sounds like kind of a titillating dessert or something, right? So I was there for a few months, and my dad got sick, and so I kind of spiraled back here with some obstacles and kind of didn't know where I was going, off the map or off the road. Ended up back at my alma mater, working on my master's. I got an opportunity to actually work for my first trio job as educational advisor for talent search at Murray State University. They paid for my master's, which was phenomenal, so I used the system. And then after I was there, 2.5 to 3 years later, I got a job after graduation at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. Go Vols. I was there working for 5.5 years as a program counselor with their Student Support Services program. And then for 2 years, I always tell students this, it's a kind of a fun story. For 2 years, I started looking for new jobs, new direction, and I said, you know, I'm ready to do something different, something dissimilar, but you know, what's out there. So I applied for all kinds of different student affairs and counseling jobs across 5 states, 87 applications, 5 states later, 3 interviews, and each interview was 2 interviews. I got a job at the College of Charleston to start a program from the ground up, which I thought was an amazing opportunity of a lifetime. So I crossed over the bridge. Obviously, challenges with family, you know, being that I'm 12.5 hours away, which was the furthest I've ever been away from my family. But as you grow up, it kind of gets a little bit easier. The first time you do it, it's really challenging. The second time you do it is a little bit easier, and the third time it gets a little bit easier as you go. So crossing the harbor here, and major changes, obviously, coming to South Carolina and becoming director of the War Scholars Program. So obviously, one of my additional pieces is getting my doctorate, so Dr. T. right there, specifically, and then some of the major life challenges that I had in terms of the death of my mother, which was one of my biggest challenges that was my last year of college, which was, yeah, it was hard, it was challenging, but I overcame and rose above, specifically, but of course my fraternity, Alpha Sigma Phi helped me get through that, as well as my family, and got through that and then moved on. So that is my city map. So I always believe that learning and teaching is kind of goes hand in hand, so I wouldn't expect you guys to do something that I didn't do. So there you go. Okay. So let's do all right, guys. All right, so as we go through this, everybody should have a handout now. Casey, you want to revisit this? You want to work on a new one? With foam board this time? Yes? No? You thinking about it? Well, I'll let you, yes or no? No? All right. How about this? You bring your one in next time, we'll talk about it. Okay, bring it in. She came to our retreat with us and she was working on it, so. Okay. So let's think about this. So let's go around, and we've got some staff members to help you out as you go through the piece, the process. So if you guys need any help, don't hesitate to ask as we go through and work on these pieces. Okay? You guys look like the cogs are turning. Good thinking.
The hardest part's coming up.